Was this the greatest performance in baseball history?
I think it was. Um, he is a middle of the order bat or top of the order bat, capable of hitting 50 home runs and stealing 50 bags in a season, which we did in 2024. And oh, by the way, he's a top of the rotation pitcher that strikes out 10 in an LCS game in which he hits 3 home runs in. So I think Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player to ever play. With apologies to Babe Ruth, with apologies to Barry Bonds, with apologies to Willie Mays, there's no one like Shohei Ohtani. And no disrespect to Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth, he didn't have to get on a plane. Every game was a train ride or a car ride, taking on guys that were plumbers and accountants and farmers in the off season. So what this guy is unbelievable, and I hope we don't take it for granted.
I'm so with you there. And normally, whenever I make statements like that, it feels hyperbolic. It feels like we're prisoners of
Hmm.
the moment. But when I said I think we
Agreed.
just watched the single greatest performance from a baseball player in history, I didn't feel like that was hyperbolic in the slightest. So it just put this into perspective for us. If there is any way that we can rationalize and put context to Shohei's performance, what other performance, maybe in sports history, comes close to what we saw Shohei do on Friday night?
How about a random little league where the kid has his parents forge his birth certificate? How about that? Let's. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like. I was watching it, going, this what he does is like, pick out the best athlete in your town that dominates, or back in the day before travel baseball, that would dominate everything, whether it's Little League baseball or rec basketball or Pop Warner football. He's always the best kid on the field, no matter what type of field it is. And that's what Shohei Ohtani is. And like I said, in this day and age of where people hate everything and they're so quick to dismiss it and say that what they're seeing now isn't as good as what they saw years ago or when they were kids. Shohei Ohtani is the exception to that. I mean, I can't. I'm 55 years old, and I have never seen a player like him. And I don't think we have. I don't think we've ever seen a player like this. And like I said, I just hope, and what we say on our show all the time, I just hope we don't take it for granted, and we can kind of appreciate what we're all witnessing.
With that in mind, do you feel like how important was this performance in this moment? Because certainly the doubters were starting to get a little loud about, well, he's not doing it in the playoffs at the same level until he
Right.
has this performance.
Yeah, no, I think it was important. And make no mistake about it. Look, Shohei is in this age of where we know everything about everyone. He is this sort of mystery man, right? We rarely see him out, and it's not like he's active on Instagram or social media. He doesn't really give a whole lot of interviews, save for the pre and the post game interviews, which he's required to do. But yeah, I think he heard the whispers of, all right, well, he's great in the regular season, but man, the past two postseasons, the World Series last year, he wasn't great. Oh, by the way, he was dealing with a banged up shoulder. But this postseason, he's kind of in a slump. What's going on here? Lefties have given him trouble. I think he heard that, or I think he heard whispers of that. And I really think that performance was a big blank you to anyone that dared to doubt his greatness.
He's Batman. Literally, we know
That's
nothing
right.
about the man, but we know that he is a superhero.
Yeah.
But we heard Dave Roberts, after they punched their ticket to the World Series, we heard Dave Roberts say, "Hey, 4 more wins, and then we'll really ruin baseball." And we've heard a lot of rumblings and discussion about how the payroll of the Dodgers is ruining Major League Baseball. What would you have to say about that?
Well, Major League Baseball hasn't had a repeat champion since 2000. So we're going on a quarter century. Now, obviously, the Dodgers are in a very good position to end that streak this year. But I think when you look at 2 years ago, the Rangers and the Diamondbacks were in the World Series, and ultimately won by the Texas Rangers. The Milwaukee Brewers were in the LCS, this year. Um, the Seattle Mariners, I'm not sure what their payroll is. Toronto Blue Jays, obviously their payroll is pretty up, it's up there. So I think that over the past handful of years, there's been a nice kind of snapshot of a little bit of everything from various size markets. Sure, you've got the big heavy hitters like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Cubs, but the Tampa Bay Rays, save for this year, always seem to be in the mix, or at least frequently in the mix for the postseason. The Milwaukee Brewers, as I mentioned, they had the best record in baseball and made it all the way to the LCS. So I think some of it is overstated and overblown a little bit. I think baseball's in a great place.
Would you say that what we saw makes Shohei the best athlete in any sport right now?
Oh, now that's a great one. That is because it's so difficult. That's difficult to say because you have so many of these outstanding track and field athletes and soccer players and certainly football players as well. So I think Shohei Ohtani, I will say this, I think he's among the most recognizable athletes around the world. I would put him up there with LeBron James, with the greatest soccer players around the world, the greatest football players around the world. He is in that rarefied air where it's like the one name, right? It's the one name celebrity, Ohtani. That's really it. There's LeBron, Ohtani, Madonna. If you want to go, is she still a celebrity?
Yeah, no, we're still.
Oh yeah.
Madonna's
still an icon.
We're getting, yeah, but he's the Madonna
Seal.
of sports. I'm in on this. I'm in.
Yeah, J-Lo, all of it. I think Ohtani probably can carry a tune better than J-Lo. So and he can hit lefties and go deep and strike out 10.
J-Lo can't do that. She can't. She can
cannot.
do a lot, but she cannot do everything. But yeah, it's a privilege to be able to watch what Shohei Ohtani does on any given night. But we also have a fascinating matchup on the AL side of things. I thought earlier in that series, like this isn't even going back to Seattle. The Mariners have this
Right.
locked up after the first couple of games. Now, series is tied. The Blue Jays force a game 7. What have you made of this series so far? The Blue Jays' ability to fight back, and then George Kirby and Shane Bieber, the matchup that we'll have on the mound tonight.
Well, I think what has been interesting to me in this first 6 games of this series is that I think the Mariners going in had a decided advantage on paper with their starting rotation, but that advantage we haven't really seen that. In this series alone, I don't think that the Mariners have gotten much length or much production from their starting rotation. George Kirby, who went earlier in this series, gave up a postseason record 8 runs. So they've had to rely on their bullpen, and for the most part, the bullpen has been up to snuff. But I think one thing that I'm going to keep an eye on is what we saw a little bit last night. Which team is going to avoid? Which team is not going to make the mistake? Which team is going to field the ball cleanly, make the defensive plays? The Mariners made 3 errors yesterday. I think that had a factor in the game, certainly. And also the Blue Jays' ability to do the little things, move the runner over, put the ball in play, bunt if necessary, go first to third, take the extra base. If that is going to be the case, then I think it's the Blue Jays tonight. But that being said, I think 7 of the last 8 home teams have lost game 7s in postseason history. So we'll see. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be an electric atmosphere tonight in Toronto.
We just had Vlad up on the screen. What do you make of his performance so far this postseason?
Yeah, I think he's sort of put the baseball world on notice. He's been a known commodity. He's been an MVP contender. He's been a superstar of this league. But I think this postseason has taken him to another level. And guys, he's an excellent hitter, which I think everyone knew. But what he has shown sports fans and baseball fans in particular is that he's better defensively. He's a very good base runner, and he's built for the moment. He's had some huge moments in this postseason, in this series. So I think that he has taken that next step of, like I said, he was already a star, but I think he's gone into superstar status now with this series and this postseason.
And speaking of that, I would love to see a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. take on this Dodgers team, but of course they have to get there first. They have to punch their ticket. So, from what you've seen from both the Mariners and the Blue Jays, who do you think would be a better matchup for the
Hmm.
Dodgers in the World Series? Loaded question.
Is
I
there
know.
well, is there a way that the Blue Jays and Mariners can combine to perform to form one like super giant team like the Monstars? I mean, look, I'm kind of being
Like the Jets and
facetious here a
Sharks.
little. Yes, absolutely. But look, I think no matter if it's the Blue Jays or the Mariners, clearly it's not take to say that if it's either the Mariners or the Blue Jays, they're going to be the underdog to the Dodgers. That's just the way it's going to be. That being said, we've seen some strange things in this year's postseason and in Major League Baseball's postseason history. Um, who would have thought that the '88 Los Angeles Dodgers would beat the Oakland A's with Canseco and McGuire and Eckersley. I saw the best team I ever saw in person was the 2019 Astros, and they couldn't figure out how to win a game at home in the World Series and ended up losing to the Washington Nationals. So I think the Dodgers will be a pretty heavy favorite. However, I'm not ready to say that they're just going to mow through if it's the Mariners and whether it's the Mariners or the Blue Jays. And remember, guys, by the time Game 1 of the World Series rolls around, the Dodgers will have had 7, 8 days off. So who knows what kind of factor that might play in it as well.
I love the rust. We're already at rest or rust. That's how good the Dodgers are. Okay, a team not as good as the Dodgers trying to get there would be San Francisco. Got to talk to you about some of the stuff that's happening, not on the field, but off the field right now. What do you make of the Giants zeroing in on what I think is a surprising hire to some? The first time we're seeing Tony Vitello from Tennessee. What do you make of this?
I'm very surprised. But look, I know Buster Posey he's the guy that's calling the shots, one of the great catchers of his generation, one of the great San Francisco Giants in history. He is not going to do something without having studied it extensively, without doing his research on the implications, and also Tony Vitello himself. So, I think the game has changed. The college game has changed. They have their own analytics department, certainly not quite to the extent that major league teams do across the league. But yeah, I was a little surprised, but hey, it certainly makes for good copy and good headlines and good conversation. I would be intrigued. I definitely will be very, very intrigued to see how it's going to work out should they decide they want to go that route.
That's definitely a different direction, that is for sure. But one
Yeah.
more managerial related question for you before we get you out of here. There's been a lot of reports about the Angels and Albert Pujols bringing him in a leadership position. What's the latest on that? And what do you make of Albert Pujols potentially in a leadership spot?
Well, I know he's also interviewed with the Baltimore Orioles. So Albert is very, very serious about this. There's a reason he managed in the Dominican Winter League last off season. It was to show major league teams that had openings that, hey, I'm committed to this, that I'm willing to do this, that I'm serious about it. And we've been fortunate enough to have Albert Pujols be part of MLB Network for the past couple of years. And there is not anyone, I'm totally convinced he could do it because he knows the game and he has a great way of connecting with people. He is one of the sweetest men you'll ever come across. And I think that he has a way of connecting with players of all types, whether they're superstars or middle of the road grinders or American, Hispanic, Dominican, Venezuelan. So his resume speaks for itself. So if he is tabbed, whether it's the Angels or the Orioles or another team that has an opening, I think he'll do a great job. I think he'll go in there and make a difference.